Welcome back, I'm Kimberly. She's Fulyana Osborne. This is Inside Exec. Today we're going to visit performance reviews. And we're going to talk about how you prepare when you know that your performance review is not going to be good news. And so you already know that it's not going to be good news for whatever reason. How do you prepare for that? And it's about not taking the approach of fight or flight, particularly fight. But I will let Fulyana introduce the ideas that we're going to talk about.
The fact that you already know is a huge advantage. It might be one big issue that's going to cause your review to be bad. It could be more than one. In either ways, you've already faced the worst of it. You faced the worst of it because if something went wrong, it's why we're having this bad review, is you already dealt with it, not to completion or anything, but it has come up and you already had a conversation at the very minimum between you and your manager. So now you're sitting with your manager and don't leave it for your manager to bring it all up. Most organizations have you prepare, they prepare, then you come together. Take the lead. It's important to take the lead if you know it's your performance. Do not come in with the view to say, oh, I just want to get the record straight. I don't agree. I think you already had those conversations at the time, if there was anything like that. With this one, how are you going to turn it around so you're moving in a good direction, and for the rest of the year or quarter, the coming quarter, next year, whatever it is, your performance is going to go to very minimum of you met expectation or exceeded instead of did not meet expectation where you're at now. So I think if you go in and come prepared with the facts and the solutions. So start off by being honest. I'm not expecting this to be a good review based on performance to date. We already talked about those things individually. What I want to do now, you say to the manager, is to go through, again, just high level, describe the situation, what went wrong, and what I've done since then to correct it, if possible, and to make sure it doesn't happen again. So this is what I've done. So stick to the facts, stick to what the issue is, and then what have you done to make it happen? It won't be all that straightforward, because sometimes to avoid this thing happening again, you might need a new system or a new program and there's no budget or whatever. So then you have a stage approach. The ideal is that I realize that's not going to happen in this budget or this financial year or whatever it is. In the meantime, we've got a process in place that you do the check and you check it, etc. 2, we got a backup system. Whatever caused the breakdown is how you learned from it and what have you done about not making it happen again. Do not go into, I don't have the resources and it's not my fault and all of that. That's been and done. Show the person that you are. And they should know that anyway, because you had those discussions. But sometimes too many things happening. So it's your job to summarize it. As I said, what were the issues that caused your performance to be below average? What caused it? What have we learned? What have we done about it to that? Some of it could be as straightforward as training for you and your team. You're taking the rap for the team, but it's for you and that. Some of it could be bad communication, sometimes being, set the bar too high to start off with, and you missed the key piece that was going to take a lot longer, etc. So identify those, show them, and show where not again. And then that's one bit. So that's dealing with the past. Going forward, it's saying to have those things analyzed and come to very early in the stage. So if there's any shade of doubt about not meeting, I don't wait till I did not meet. I will come to you and talk to you about it. And this is what I've done. And then talk about for the next quarter, I've got those 4 things on the plate, and this is how I'm going to manage them. This is what I put in place. So show that, yes, what you learned, but you already put it in practice for what's now and what's the end of the year.
My concern is that you might come across someone who point blank says, I don't agree with the performance review. I don't think that I have not met the expectations, and I don't accept what's being said, and also that they want to live in that past moment. They're not interested in moving forward because perhaps they don't believe that they will ever meet expectations in your eyes, and how you manage the defeatist attitude that comes in and says, well, you're always going to think about me this way. I'm never going to move past the fact that I didn't meet this deadline. You'll always bring that up. You'll always remind me of that.
I think then as a manager, then you have to stick again to the fact and say, look, the fact of the matter is we need to discuss what the review, which means the assessment of the last 4 months. And that's why we have to talk about it now. Yes, we dealt with it, but we do want to move forward. We want to, as a manager, and then you say, well, for me, what I can help you with is training. What I can help you with is experience in this regard or whatever. And if the person is saying, well, I just don't agree with you, then just say, well, okay, let's go back to when we set the goals. When we set the goals, we said, this is the goal and this is what we expect and this is the outcome. Now, let's go one by one. Where, what, how, very, very clearly. So it can't be subjective in that sense. And if you're talking about attitude or whatever, maybe then feedback from customers about their attitude or whatever, maybe a 360-degree report that said, you know, you're forever doing this or that on behavioral side of things. So go back to what we agreed to do. We agreed those goals, where you haven't met them and where you need to work on them, and what can I do to help you meet those. If the person doesn't care and is showing attitude again, you're going to have to talk about that and say, look, you're denying the fact. I'm sorry, we have to agree to disagree, but let me make the expectation clear. So for next quarter, you need to do this, and this. And if not, then, yeah, we'll deal with it in the proper performance process.
Once again, it comes down to let us deal with the issue, not the person. This is not a personal attack on you as a person. I don't hate you because you didn't meet the deadlines. What I'm not happy about is that you didn't meet the deadlines. Your team didn't meet the deadlines, whatever the situation is that we expected, as an organisation, we expected this outcome. It didn't happen. So let us go back and find out why it didn't happen and how, as an organisation, we can help you make it happen next time, because this is our expectation next time. Don't care about you. And sometimes you have to say the words. You have to say, this is not about you. This is about this activity, this task, this outcome. And make it very clear, because as humans, we do take it on the chin. We do take it personally, and particularly if you love your job and you love what the outcomes that you want to happen, and you are disappointed that it hasn't happened. Perhaps in some ways you can't identify why it didn't happen. It just didn't happen because of too many reasons. It might have been external, might have been internal, and you perhaps don't know the solution in terms of the work environment that you're in now. If we go back to the beginning of 2020, there were lots of people who would have had goals or targets that they had to meet. See, I didn't want to use the goals word. They had targets that they had to meet. And suddenly they were thrown into a situation where they couldn't go into their work environment. They didn't have the interaction with the other people that they needed to produce these outcomes and meet these targets. And they had to scramble to try and do it and make it happen. And it would have been very easy in that period of time to say, oh, it was COVID. We couldn't do this because of COVID. And it did for a long time get used as the excuse. We can't deliver this, or we can't do this because of the problems that we've had with COVID. There was distribution issues and transport issues and all sorts of reasons why things were not happening and were blamed on COVID. Some of it was true, some of it wasn't. But in that environment, as a manager, you have to recognise that, yes, that there are threats that are outside of your area of influence. And so you have to just acknowledge that that's the case and move on and readjust. But in the adjustment, you need to bring in the resources that are expected to meet those targets so that they are part of the solution. Once again, we're talking about being part of the solution, not part of the problem. So It's about looking at the task, looking about what the resourcing is, and you as the person who hasn't met the target are part of that resourcing, and ensuring that if you need extra resources, whether or not you think they're available, that you identify them. And so that discussion can also happen about how the resourcing is going to happen, or how you have to get around the fact that that can't be resourced, as Fulyana's talked about. In the end, it is very focused, the discussion, on the outcomes and on the ways that the outcomes are going to happen, and when the progress towards those outcomes is going to happen. So it might be that if you're the one who's subject to the poor performance review, that you say, well, we've agreed, the organisation generally only checks about once every 3 months. That doesn't work for me in this situation, because I need to be able to identify earlier in the process that I'm not meeting the targets. I'm not going to get there for whatever reason, and start to think about a change in the process, because nothing is set in stone. Everything can be changed at some point. So even if the organisation says we only do reviews every 3 months of progress because we haven't got the resources to do it any other way, as someone who is part of that process, you could say, well, yes, the organisation's not going to check for every 3 months, but I need to do it every week. And so I've set up something for myself. It's taking responsibility for the solution. So I will do it myself so that I know where I am, so that if at the end of 6 weeks I can identify that the shortfall is getting bigger, then it's like looking at a clock and saying, well, after 24 hours, it's running 30 seconds late, it's running a minute late. You know that things are running late, and you're not giving yourself the opportunity to pick up the slack. You have to identify it to someone else and say, I haven't got the resources, we are already running late, I know I'm not supposed to report for another 6 weeks, but I need to tell you now. Early intervention for everything is better than trying to find a solution to a problem at the end of the time.
Yeah, I agree.
Good. I'm going to end now while she's still agreeing with me. So I guess the bottom line for this is that it's going to be a poor performance review. You accept that before you go in. You don't go in with the fight or flight mentality. You go in recognising that there has been a problem that has resulted in this being a poor performance review for you. What you want to work on is how that won't ever happen again in this situation. For now, I'm Kim Bailey. She's Fulyana Osborne. This is Inside Exec.